So welcome to Torat Andalus. This is class 134 on the Golden Dove. By the way, I posted a poll on my channel, so if you can answer the poll regarding whether you feel like the recording quality is low, the volume is low, and whether you'd like me to start using a microphone. So if you can just answer that poll, and while we're at it, if you didn't subscribe to the channel, subscribe. It really helps because, you know, the things I'm teaching here, I'm teaching Torah, and I think the Torah of my father is a special Torah. So, press the like button, share the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so, because, my goal is to try to spread the Torah. I think we live in a dark time. I think we live in a time where the ha'emet tehi ne'aderet, as the Gemara says at the end of Masechet Sotah, really, our truth is becoming more and more hidden. So, to the extent that I can spread some Torah to people, and if you can help me do that by subscribing to the channel, by liking the video, by sharing these videos, please do so. Okay, back to actual content. Page 75, bottom of the page. We're about to finish the second section of freedom, language, and negativity. The second section was language and ma'ana. Boy, that was some amazing. It really was an amazing section. I mean, it's like total wow, just wow. Okay, let's finish it. So we were talking about the idea of signpost and how the Moreh Nebuchim Dalalat El Ha'irim is meant to serve as a signpost. So continuing, because there are no, and we're talking about Lutif, how God guided us through the desert so that we can develop within us an internal intelligence that allows us to restructure our mental apparatus and mental systems, right? So let's understand that a little more. Why would the desert help us restructure our internal mental systems? So, because there are no fixed points in the desert, it is not possible to get one's bearings. So first of all, in the desert, you get lost. It's not like, if you're in a farm, you see, the farmhouse is over there. I see the farmhouse. I know if I go towards the farmhouse, there's a road running by the farmhouse. If I go in that general direction, eventually I'll get to a road. That's really easy when you're in a let's say a field, even a wheat field which has many, many stalks, but you look far away, you see the place where they do the threshing of the wheat, right? Or you see maybe there's some cows in a distance, right? So there's always going to be these external fixed points that you can rely on to kind of navigate. You don't have that in the desert, right? If you're in a real desert, there's no external fixed points. And therefore you can't get your bearings. So what do? You can't rely on the outside world to guide you. So what do? You have to develop an internal mechanism. You can't rely on what the outside is telling you anymore, can you? So the desert envelops the traveler, literally. I mean, the sun is so strong that, you're in the desert and it's hard to really see. It's hard to navigate. You just totally become disoriented. So it envelops the traveler. There's sand all over the place. You're completely engulfed in sand from all directions. He becomes disoriented in ha'iran. So now he loses his orientation and he doesn't know which way to go. He's ha'iran. Nebuchim hem ba'aris. The desert entraps, and therefore you become trapped in the desert because you want to try to find a way out of the desert, but there's nothing in the desert that gives you the sign to get out of the desert, right? You can go in circles for days and days and just go in one big circle, right? Because of the rapid topological and climactic shifts, the old entrusted pathways may now lead to death and destruction, right? You can think, here's a road. It could be that this road is leading to quicksand now. Maybe there's a quicksand at the end of the road. Maybe the whole area got covered in a giant thing of sand from a sandstorm. Maybe the road gets washed away eventually, so you're going to end up in a place where you're going to be worse off than when you started, right? Because the sands are always shifting, right? Thus, in order to survive, the ha'iran must learn how to disregard the signposts and trust his own judgment, right? So you can't rely on these signposts, can you? You see a sign in the desert. Maybe the wind moved it. Maybe the wind moved the road. Maybe the wind destroyed the road up ahead, right? He is to overcome the imaginary as well as error and ignorance. So therefore, you can't make errors. And you can't just blindly follow what the outside world is telling you. You have to be intelligent and say, wait, hold on 1 second. Does this sign make sense? It's telling me to go that way. But I know in my mind, based on the position of the sun in the sky, that south is there and north is there, and I need to be going in this direction. You have to start developing some sort of internal compass, and you can't just rely on what the outside world is telling you, and trust his own judgment. And if the sign says go one way, I was in a Vermont road the other day. Apparently the flooding washed away, there was flooding there in July, so it washed away some roads. So they were like repaving one of the roads. Everybody was in this long, insane line of cars. It was literally, we were waiting there for like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and it wasn't moving. But it was moving really slowly. It was insane. They were literally paving the roads in the middle of the day. Okay, this actually was on the way to Vermont. I think this was still in upstate New York, which makes sense. Governor Hochul, she's one of the brilliant leaders of the Western world. Anyway, in the middle of the day, just closed both directions. And like the construction workers are there and they're telling us like, there's nothing we can do. And I decided to trust my own judgment. I saw like this turnoff to make a left into this neighborhood. It looked like a dead end. But I kind of said, I'm not going to rely on these people. They don't know what they're saying. They don't know what they're doing. I learned not to trust, authority for anything. Not because they're bad, but just because they might not know. And there's thousands and thousands and thousands of cars in either direction. Maybe I'm probably exaggerating. Maybe it's not thousands. It was upstate New York, hundreds, but it was a long, long wait. Everybody was waiting patiently. And there was a small left turn right into this like neighborhood. I just got off on the left turn, drove 1 minute ahead, got back on the road, no problem. Right? So most people trust the system. And I'm not saying to never trust the system. I didn't say that, right? But sometimes you have to use your intelligence. If you're just going to trust the signpost, the sign, this way, go this way, everybody go this way, and the people, the construction workers there with everybody go this way. Yeah, there's no place to go, right? I got off the road, went ahead a minute, past the area of construction, got back on the road, and Shalom al Israel. Right? So you see the idea of, it's the same thing. Should you take a vaccine? Should you not take the vaccine? I'm talking about the COVID. I don't know. But use your intelligence, meaning just because a senile old man who pretends to be president says you should take the vaccine doesn't necessarily mean you should. Maybe you should. Discuss it with the doctor. Use your intelligence, but don't rely blindly on what people are telling you. Right? That's the idea of developing an internal intelligence. Right? Be smart. Listen to what people are saying. That's okay. They developed this vaccine. Fair enough. Think about it. Go to the doctor. Everybody has a particular situation. Discuss it. And you make a decision. Right? Don't rely blindly on external signposts. Right. So, thus, in order to survive, the Hayran must learn how to disregard the signposts. Sometimes you disregard the signposts. Construction workers are saying, go this way. I didn't. I disregarded. And trust his own judgment. Trust your judgment sometimes. But sometimes trusting your judgment can lead to failure. Right? That's also a possibility. And you know that. He is to overcome the imaginary as well as error and ignorance. In a different context, the rabbis taught about a situation where survival requires a charting of a new path. Sometimes you need to also chart a new path, right? Maybe none of the existing roads are the correct road. The Torah is analogous to two paths. I believe this is from Masechet Megillah. Let me just check the footnotes really quickly. This is footnote 78. So footnote 78, yes, Masechet Kegillah, but Masechet Hagiga, but this is a Yerushalmi, just so you know, not the Bavli. Masechet Hagiga. So it says, the Torah is analogous to two paths, one leading to fire and the other to snow. Anyone bearing towards this one will perish by fire. Anyone bearing towards that one will perish by snow. So all the paths lead to destruction. What do you do now? What is he to do? Let him walk in the middle. Maybe make your own path. Maybe don't rely on any other paths, right? It happens so much in society where everybody just blindly follows everybody else because everybody is doing it, right? Sometimes what everybody is doing is not necessarily the correct thing for you. Yeah. The crisis facing the Ha'iran is a crisis of choice, of pure choice, since this level excludes signs by which riddles can be resolved. If many people are too intellectually debased to even be Ha'iran. Right? A buffalo following all the other buffaloes, eventually they fall off a cliff. None of those buffaloes were Ha'iran before they fell off the cliff because they didn't have the intellectual acuity to be Ha'iran, right? They just followed. All the buffaloes are going this way. It must be a good place to go. Fall off the cliff. So, even the state of Ha'iran itself, the state of being perplexed, that itself is a choice. You chose perplexity in the sense that you decided or you recognized that the external signposts are no longer useful, or you can't just trust them blindly, right? So you become Hayran, right? The crisis facing the Hayran is a crisis of choice, of pure choice. Since this level excludes signs by which riddles can be resolved, there are no signs anymore that can resolve the riddles confronting you. And if there's no signs that can resolve those riddles, what do? You better well make a choice, but it's your choice. It's no one else's choice to make. The dalala, a mere gesture pointing out a direction, can never express imminent meaning. Right? So all the dalala can do, the dalala is not sharah, dalala is not a word, water, so it's water, ice, so it's ice. No. All the dalala does, it's a gesture, it's suggesting, think about that direction, right? May work. Maybe it won't, right? So it's a gesture. It can never express imminent meaning. It's not going to give you the full answer, right? There's no presence to the dalala, right? There's no presence to what the dalala indicates. Right? Dalala is the ground both for direction and for bifurcation. And every dalala not only gives you a direction to go and says, go this way. It also creates a crisis of choice. Do I want to rely on this dalala? As noted, some signposts are unreliable. So the very existence of the signpost creates a perplexity. Do I rely on this signpost? Right? Fauci says take the vaccine. Do I rely on him? Don't I? I'm not going to get cynical or funny, although I could. Right? But do I? Is it? So it's a signpost. I may decide to reject it. Right? That's the choice you have to make. Which signpost to rely on? That itself is a choice. Right? Pointing out gives the direction and branches the path into two. Direction and bifurcation are simultaneous. Yeah, because like I said, although it points out, there's always the choice to not go that way. To say, you know what? I don't trust this sign, or I don't trust this person, or this person is an imbecile. And he told me to go this way, I'm going to go the other way. That's a crisis. Thus, hayra is to dalala what meaning is to the sign. So you start out in a state of perplexity, and you have the dalala, which is a proposed solution. You start out with meaning, or rather a sign, and I think I understand what that sign is, what the meaning of that sign is. I think I understand the ma'ana of the sign, right? But it's a choice to understand properly. Sometimes we don't want to follow the sign, what's being said, what's actually the intended import of the words, right? Right? So hayra is to dalala. What meaning is to the sign? Or let me perhaps say that another way. I have a thought, and I'm going to use this sign or this word to express that thought, right? And person is going to hear that word or that sign. Will he understand what I'm saying, right? Very deep. Okay, the crisis of hayra is resolved by an act of choice. This leads to another dalala, branching the path into two, and so on. An endless labyrinth, and that's what you eventually have. You just have a labyrinth, right? Because every choice leads to another two choices, and then you take a choice, and then another. The path is always bifurcating. In the words of Borges, hope not that the straightness of your path that stubbornly branches off into two and stubbornly branches off into two will have an end. Hope not that it has an end.